So, here we are, again, talking about money, but not really. Because no one actually wants to talk about money. People want to hint at it, passive-aggressively gesture in its general direction, and then pretend like the tension in the air is because of the weather. No, babe, I'm not mad. I just think it's interesting that you needed new headphones the same week our gas bill tripled. But yeah, totally fine. I'm fine. And the worst part, you actually think you're talking about money. You think the fight is about who spent what and who forgot to pay the water bill or who mysteriously developed short-term memory loss when it was their turn to buy groceries. But no, that's the decoy. That's the decoy duck floating calmly on the surface, while underneath it there's a full-blown emotional kraken tearing through your relationship's foundation. Because here's the thing, money fights in relationships, they're almost never about the actual numbers, like sure, math exists and budgeting is a thing, and yes, maybe your partner doesn't need 5 streaming services and a monthly subscription to artisan socks from Denmark. But if you dig even slightly beneath the surface, what you're usually dealing with is something way messier. Control, trust, security, power, fear, oh, and good old-fashioned shame. But it's easier to yell about receipts than say, I'm scared, right? It's easier to roll your eyes when they say they need to feel free with money than to admit that every time you open your banking app, your chest tightens like a trash compactor and you suddenly remember your mom crying over unpaid bills at the kitchen table. But sure, let's scream about the takeout again. That feels safer. You want a really good way to start a relationship fight? Try saying, hey, can we talk about the credit card balance? And just watch your partner instantly transform into a combination of a ghost, a lawyer, and a toddler who dropped their ice cream. Complete vanishing, defensive statements, and incoherent rage all in one person. Talented. Because money touches everything. It's not just bills and paychecks. It's identity, it's self-worth, it's gender roles, it's how you were raised, it's what you were taught to fear or ignore or never question. And let's not even get into who should pay for what. That's not a conversation. That's a modern blood sport. And you know the worst version of this whole mess? When the incomes are unequal. Oh, baby. Welcome to emotional landmines on every step. When one person makes significantly more than the other, you can basically hear the relationship whispering, this is gonna get awkward. Because suddenly every dinner, every vacation, every Amazon cart becomes a negotiation you're pretending isn't a negotiation. No, I'll get this one you got last time. Did I? You, Venmo'd me like $5, it counts. Oh. And then there's the unspoken tension. The one who earns less might start to feel guilty for needing anything, while the one who earns more might feel quietly resentful for always footing the bill. And no one says anything because saying something would break the illusion that everything's equal, even when it clearly isn't. And let me just say it is totally fine for one partner to make more than the other. What's not fine is pretending it doesn't change anything. Of course it changes things. Of course it shifts the dynamic. The question is whether you're going to acknowledge that shift and figure out how to talk about it like adults, or if you're just going to let it sit there between you like a wet towel on the bathroom floor that no one wants to pick up, but everyone keeps stepping around. And speaking of pretending, can we talk about the 50-50 couples for a second? Look, if splitting everything perfectly down the middle works for you, great. Gold star. Frame it, hang it on the fridge. But for a lot of couples, that idea becomes a weaponized fairness calculator, like some twisted version of love where you're keeping a spreadsheet in your head of who paid for coffee last Tuesday and who still owes $7.13 for brunch. And do not get me started on the emotional labor behind those numbers, because guess what? Budgeting, planning, anticipating, worrying, that's labor. That's invisible effort. And in a lot of relationships, one person is doing that on top of their job and their chores and their entire inner monologue that's basically just a screaming calculator. But sure, yeah, tell them they're controlling when they ask if maybe we don't buy another novelty air fryer. It's wild, honestly. We'll spend more time researching what toaster to buy than we will talking with our partners about how we actually feel about money. Because deep down, most people were never shown how to have these conversations. We inherited our money scripts from our families, from scarcity, from shame, from capitalism wearing a romance costume. And then we try to merge lives with someone who has their own set of money ghosts, and we act surprised when they don't align. Oh, you didn't learn how to communicate about savings goals while your parents fought about overdraft fees and yelled at the thermostat? Weird. Let's not forget how money shows up in power dynamics too. Like, who gets to make the big decisions? Who decides when it's time to buy a car, move to a new place, quit a job, or have a kid? Sometimes the person making more money starts to feel like they have more say. And sometimes they even say that out loud. Other times, the lower earning partner internalizes the idea that they're a burden and stops asking for anything. Neither of those things is sexy. None of that leads to intimacy. It just builds a quiet resentment that grows like mold in the back of the fridge, slow, hidden, and eventually unbearable. And when resentment enters the room, love quietly backs out. Because money isn't just practical, it's deeply emotional. It triggers survival fears. It pokes at our sense of self. It mirrors what we think we're worth. And when we're in a relationship, it exposes all the places where we haven't yet figured out how to say, this matters to me. This makes me feel unsafe. I need to feel like we're a team. But instead of that, we say, you spent how much on Uber Eats? We joke, we lash out, we withdraw, anything but just say, I'm scared we don't know what we're doing and I need to feel like we're figuring this out together. Because that's really what it's about, right? Not who spent what or who earns more. It's about whether you feel like you're on the same team or not. Whether you feel like your fears are seen, your effort is valued, and your voice matters in decisions that affect you both. It's about partnership. And if money is the thing pulling you apart, it's probably not the only thing. It's just the loudest. So if you're sitting there wondering why the budget talk always turns into an emotional minefield, maybe stop asking how to split the rent and start asking what would make you feel more secure. What are you afraid of when it comes to our finances? What did you learn about money growing up? You'd be surprised how much clarity comes when you stop fighting about the symptoms and start actually talking about the illness. Because most of us were never given the language to talk about this stuff. We were handed a few default options like money doesn't grow on trees, you have to suffer to earn, or the classic real love doesn't care about money, which is adorable until rent is due and one of you still thinks emotional labor counts as currency, which, by the way, it does. But good luck explaining that to someone who thinks folding laundry is a lifestyle choice. And the thing is, even when you do try to talk about it, it's like your mouths are moving in different dialects of financial trauma. One of you might be coming from a background where money was always tight, where asking for help was met with guilt, where we can't afford it wasn't just a sentence, it was a warning. And the other might have grown up in a house where spending money was how people showed love, how they coped, how they avoided every actual conversation by saying, let's just go out to eat and forget about it. So yeah, it's not just that you see money differently, it's that money means something entirely different to each of you. To one person, it means freedom. To the other, it means survival. And that, my friend, is how you end up screaming at each other in a Target parking lot because someone bought throw pillows. Here's the kicker. This dynamic can show up even in the most functional relationships. You can be two highly educated, self-aware, therapy-friendly people who've read every relationship book on the shelf and still find yourselves drowning in the same financial quicksand as your divorced aunt and the guy who yells at his wife in Home Depot. Because this isn't about intelligence. This is about emotional fluency. And most of us are barely conversational in our own financial fears. Which brings me to a point no one likes to talk about: financial avoidance. Oh yes. The quiet killer of otherwise decent relationships. It starts small. Maybe you don't want to log into the banking app together. Maybe you start accidentally forgetting to mention certain purchases. Maybe you agree on a budget, but you both know it's more of a suggestion, like a horoscope. Vaguely inspiring, but ultimately flexible. And then the trust begins to erode, not because anyone's stealing, but because you both know that certain topics are radioactive. So you avoid them, you walk around them, you build routines and workarounds and little emotional detours just to avoid facing the fact that you don't feel aligned. And that avoidance grows, it seeps into other things. Suddenly it's not just about the money, it's about how you both handle stress or don't. It's about what you're willing to say out loud or not. It's about who carries the worry and who gets to coast. And this is the part where most couples either go numb, go silent, or go shopping. Because nothing says we're fine, like a trip to IKEA that ends in passive-aggressive arguments over dish racks and a broken relationship in aisle 17. But here's the truth. You can't build intimacy on avoidance, and you definitely can't build security on silence. If you want to feel like you're actually in a partnership, not just a roommate situation with a shared Wi-Fi bill, you have to get painfully honest about what money means to you, not what you think it should mean, what it does mean. And yes, it's awkward. Yes, it's vulnerable. But so is love. So is letting someone see how scared you are that you'll never feel safe. So is admitting that you don't want to be the only one who's constantly thinking 10 steps ahead, calculating whether you can afford to take a weekend off without spiraling into financial guilt. It's hard, but not talking about it, that's harder. That turns the person you love into a liability in your nervous system, and that kind of chronic stress, that's not something you can budget your way out of. Let's not forget the lovely role social media plays in all this. Because nothing says you're behind like watching couples on TikTok building van homes in the woods and posting Financial Freedom Friday updates while you're trying to decide between generic peanut butter or real peanut butter. Suddenly, your relationship doesn't just feel stressed, it feels like a failure. Not just broke, but broken. And that shame, it isolates you. It makes you stop reaching out. It makes you pretend everything's okay when you're one overdraft away from an existential crisis. Meanwhile, your partner's probably scrolling too, comparing your home to someone's curated boho chic Pinterest fantasy and wondering if they're the reason you'll never afford a house with exposed beams and live, laugh, love on the wall. And the irony is brutal. But again, it's not actually about the house or the peanut butter. It's about not knowing how to say, hey, I'm scared we're falling behind, not just financially, but emotionally. Because you can survive being broke together. People do it every day. What most couples don't survive is the disconnect that happens when fear becomes the only thing you're silently sharing. And you know what else is wild? Some couples actually stay together longer than they should because of money. Yep. Financial codependency is real. It's the we can't afford to break up kind of love. Romantic, right? Nothing gets the heart racing like doing emotional math to decide whether you can survive on one income and a broken lease. But hey, at least you're still splitting the Netflix password. The point is, money is a mirror. It reflects everything, your values, your fears, your history, your ego. And in a relationship, it becomes a shared mirror. So the question isn't how much do we make or who spent what. It's do we even like what we're seeing in that mirror together? And if the answer is not really, then it's not time to run. It's time to get honest, brutally honest, kindly honest. The kind of honesty that says, I love you and I want us to feel like a team, even if we're both a mess. Because here's the truth. No one wants to say, feeling safe with someone isn't about how much money you have. It's about how much truth you can hold together, how much discomfort you're willing to face as a team instead of enemies in the same house playing financial tug of war. So maybe the next time you feel the tension building, pause, not to avoid it, not to suppress it, but to ask something real and not, why did you spend that much?